Hi, good evening. It is February 24th, and it is time for the February installment of my HOn3 Rio Grande Southern Model Railroad update. I've definitely made some progress over the last month. Still do have quite a bit of clutter under the layout, but it's actually starting to shrink as I'm going through materials. In fact, running a little low on some of the dirt I brought back from the Rio Grande Southern, so the good thing is that I am close to the finish line. So one of the first things you probably noticed from the last video is a lot more progress at Rico. So the scenery now extends all the way across from Ridgeway to Rico across the lift-out section. Now, bearing in mind, of course, that this represents essentially the entire second district of the railroad and not really a connection that was directly between Rico and Ridgeway. The real railroad ran in this direction from Ridgeway down to Rico by way of Lizard Head and all the other places. But now I was able to finally complete these cattle pens and install them. These are the Walters cattle pens that I modified so that you can see there's roughly the same distance. The new distance between these chutes is enough for two 30 to 34 foot stock cars in narrow gauge. So I had to kind of modify the stock pens a little bit and some cattle fencing around it and such. Now it is at the end of a stub end spur, which I know is not prototypical, and I know actually the more I thought about how I would operate this, the more I realized I'm probably going to have to basically just, well, pretend, and this is all pretend, right? But pretend that my train is progressing past the chutes, loading one car at a time, because I just don't have enough track out here. And honestly, if I were to expand the layout in this general direction, I think the first thing I would do would be to install a Y. So yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But for now, I have the cattle pens in place. They're empty, so we're gonna need, well, stock pens, so cattle and sheep. The Dolores River is now in, so you can see, and this doesn't represent the full width of the Dolores River. As it rolls through the floodplains around Rico, it kind of splits into different channels, and so this is one channel. And it also helps explain how these engine house tracks were washed away in the Great Flood of 1909 or 1911, or one of the big floods anyway. I'm going to go ahead and duck under. Anyway, so as we progress through Rico, you can see that the scenery now extends up to the backdrop, and I've tried to do my best to match the foreground and background scenery. Something that is missing are more foreground aspen. That's actually on my, hopefully this week, to-do list after a period of cold and snow here in Colorado. We're expecting a little bit of a warm-up this week. Might be a good day to work outside on deciduous trees. The backdrops are now mounted, and you can see they're elevated a little bit because there's going to be another hillside. You can see one of the retaining walls to bring the road down into Rico, and that's going to cover up kind of the bottom here. And I'm thinking about maybe up in this area actually having some photographic building flats as well to represent the town of Rico. The tracks are pretty much all ballasted and good to go and weeded in. As we move along to the north end of Rico, this is pretty much done. I do have to do some more work around settling the Pro Patria mill into place, and I'm still having some clearance issues in that loading shed. But this scene is pretty much done. Again, this is the least prototypical part of my layout. It represents a part of town that was not in this position relative to the other structures, but it does kind of give me this looking down the street at the train tracks view. And there's the rest of the scenery I need to fill in here. So swinging around from Rico into basically through the curve, Burns Canyon, into Gallagher. The only thing really I've done here is maybe a little bit of scrub brush, and I yellowed up the grass a little bit. Still haven't really done much with these bushes yet. I still need to make the right-hand red bushes look like the left ones. No changes here since the last update either, but as I progress through here, I'm starting to really put some thought and work into Ophir. So this part of Ophir won't look any different than the last update, but ta-da! We are making some progress at Ophir now. So these mountains back here were not here last update, and I've been able to settle the, what do you call it, the Alta Mine tram house into the scenery pretty well. It actually fit better than I thought it was going to. I kind of went on on instinct in terms of the height of the rocks and all that, and when I plopped it down to do final fitting, it actually fit right away. So it's like, okay, great. And you can kind of see how I've been cheating back here a little bit. This is a foam rock sort of panel, but that's going to basically divide the foreground scenery and the background scenery. And again, I think I mentioned in another update, this cutout of the Ophir needles, way too small, so I'm going to end up with one that's going to be double the size. It's going to rise up and over. This is Colorado Route 145 as it comes down in. I have not put the grade crossings in yet. I haven't finished the final road scenicking. This is actually made using sanded grout from Lowe's or Home Depot, I forget where. I also still need to permanently install these retaining walls. I need to finish building this one, but we're getting there. And then as you progress around, and also I think this engine is new from the last update. It is a Blackstone C19 that I have painted and weathered to represent one of the Class C16s that the Rio Grande Southern had that they ran into the late 20s. So not exactly prototypical, but I really have a thing for the Rio Grande Southern C16s, and so now I've got an almost C16 on my layout. So through here, still need all those deciduous trees, primarily aspens, and then really not a lot of updates coming through Windy Point, because this was pretty much finished. Really all that remains to be done here is putting line poles, and the line poles are actually going to be on the outside of the curve as they were in the prototype, which it remains to be seen whether they're going to interfere with photography at this point, but prototypically that's where it belongs. And then coming into Placerville, ta-da, we've been doing a lot of work on Placerville. So I don't know why I'm referring to myself in the plural, but right in this area I think I'm going to end up with a water tank. So I'm going to probably move some trees out here to kind of screen so that the tank looks like it's a different scene. It'll represent the Ames water tank. And then, because Placerville didn't have one, so we can see that we've dirted in the structures here. So here is the freight warehouse or freight depot, whatever you want to call it. I'm still having some minor issues with warpage on the platform for the Placerville depot, and yeah, this train order board took a whack, so I need to fix that. Then going back into here, I have the post office structure with the ubiquitous outhouse. This is the M&M Mercantile and the Placerville garage. These structures all still exist, as well as this structure as well. And actually, so does the depot. It's just been relocated to a different part of town, and it's unfortunately in pretty sad shape, so I don't know how much longer it's going to last. The only structure that is here that does not still exist is this one here. Swinging around, coming back into Ridgeway, I'm probably going to put a low hill here. I want to do some kind of low hills and grassy kind of areas. There's actually quite a bit of railroad, about 27 miles worth of railroad between this scene and that scene, and I obviously don't have room to model all of it, so I think just adding some negative space, just some scenic running, is going to do basically give me the most bang for my buck here, rather than try to cram some structure scene or mine or something here. I'm just going to leave it woods and trees, and maybe even screen a little bit of the train as it goes through, so that you get a sense that the train is moving from one geographical location to another. Coming back into Ridgeway, I think this is new since the last update. I moved the old Ridgeway, or what was going to be the Placerville stock pen, here to Ridgeway. And again, it's at the end of the stub end siding, which represents the the Denver and Rio Grande Western interchange. And that's okay, because I don't actually plan to operate this pen. It's more of a scenic element. I had built it. I didn't really have a good way to place it or operate it over here in Placerville, so I just said, you know what? I've got this corner space here that needs something. And I think if you look at it against that Log Hill Mesa backdrop, and there was a stock pen right there in Placerville, I think it works. And a couple cows in here, and if you count there, I think there's 4 piles of cow poop. So, and the other big deal, I think, for Ridgeway that I've been able to do so far is the Ridgeway water tank, which you can see is modeled after the 1942 or 43 fire that burned the roof off the tank. This is a Banta Models kit, and this is sort of the murky river water that the tank was filled with, and it's modeled using plexiglass, and I shot the back with a couple of weathered brown and olive drab green spray bombs, and then it has the extended frost box, unlike the other Rio Grande Southern tanks. So getting there. So what's left? I have a pretty long list of things to do yet. Clearly, Ridgeway is a long way to go. That turntable's not going to build itself. Neither will the roundhouse that I have to build. I did just get a huge shipment in of Tichy windows and doors to build the office, the Ridgeway yard office, and a couple other structures around Ridgeway. So this clearly is the biggest ticket item I need to finish, because it's actually the first scene you see when you come into the train area. The other major area that still needs work is obviously Ophir. I still have to build the quality store. We'll finish building it. I have to build Mrs. Skillen's store. And then I'm on the fence. It really depends on how much room I have left. I don't think I have room for a full-size Oilton Club structure, but I kind of want to model it anyway, because when I visited Ophir, it is the only remaining structure from the railroad days still in the town of Ophir. And so I'd like to have it. So what I may end up doing is either trying to do some sort of photo backdrop with it, or some kind of scaled down half H, somewhere between HO and N scale forced perspective model to go up in that corner. But I just don't think I have room for the full-size structure, but I still want to capture it. So there are obviously 3 more structures that I need to build for Ophir, and those are going to be fairly substantial structures and requiring a lot of details. So that's really it. And of course, from an electronics perspective, about 50 to 60% of the turnouts are already wired to their respective frog juicers, so the rest of those need to be wired in. I need to wire in the turntable, obviously. As you can see here, some of the kill switches are in, some of them are not. So I need to finish the kill switches as well. I need to place the San Miguel River in the foreground at Placerville, and then the Leopard Creek with bridges 27A and 27AS. So yeah, there's still work to do, but you know what? It operates now. I can sit back and actually earlier today I was running 3 trains at once, and you can see them. Number 345 and a short passenger train. I have number 455 with a fairly substantial consist. And then I was running my pseudo C16 over here, number 17, which by the way, I have that unfinished kit for Rio Grande Southern caboose number 0401, and I'm going to letter it in an earlier lettering scheme so it'll work nicely with number 17 here. That's it. So that's my update for February. Hoping that the March update will be just as productive, and that there will be even less bare foam visible in any of these shots, and that the backdrop will look more continuous. So thanks for stopping by, and in the meantime, keep enjoying your narrow gauge.